2 years ago, I bought a little rubber plant, a Ficus elastica, part of the fig family, the burgundy kind with those deep, almost black leaves. And within a few months, it had a problem I couldn't ignore. It couldn't hold itself up. The stem was so soft and bendy that the whole plant leaned toward the window like it was trying to escape, and every time I turned it around, it just leaned the other way. So I did what everyone does. I gave it a little bamboo stake and tied it upright. And that stake is where this whole strange experiment started, because a stake doesn't fix a weak plant. It just hides one. Here's the thing nobody tells you about houseplants. They are not weak because you're doing something wrong. They're weak because your home is too kind to them. Out in the world, a young rubber tree spends its entire life being pushed around by wind. Every gust bends the stem, and the plant answers by laying down more supporting tissue, lignin, essentially, in the cell walls, growing shorter and thicker and tougher so it can stand up to the next one. Bring that same plant indoors into still, quiet air that never moves, and it never gets the message. It grows tall, thin, and floppy, what gardeners sometimes call leggy, because as far as it knows, nothing is ever going to push back. Scientists actually have a name for this. They call it thigmomorphogenesis, first described by botanist Mark Jaffe in 1973, which is a mouthful, but all it means is that plants change their shape in response to being touched or moved. The mechanism is surprisingly intricate. Touch activates mechanosensitive channels in the plant's cells, triggering calcium signaling and ethylene production, which is what actually tells the plant to start reinforcing its stem. Commercial greenhouses have known about it for decades. They'll run a bar across their seedlings or aim fans at them on purpose, because a plant that gets handled grows sturdier than one left alone. It's the same principle as hardening off, that practice of gradually exposing seedlings to outdoor stress before planting. So I had a question. If wind is the missing ingredient, what happens when you give a houseplant more of it than it could ever get in nature? Not a fan in the corner? Something relentless. So I set up a test. I got 2 rubber plants as close to identical as I could find, same height, same number of leaves, potted in the same soil, and I let them settle for a full month. So I wasn't measuring loose dirt later, I was measuring the actual plant. Then my husband built me a little contraption to grip one stem and bend it gently once every 20 seconds, all day and all night. Now, don't ask me how it works. He's the handy one in this house, and I genuinely could not tell you what's inside it. All I know is he handed it to me, told me it would run for as long as I needed, and it did. One plant would get shaken. The other would sit right beside it, same light, same water, and never be touched at all. That still one was my control, the plant that tells you what would have happened anyway. Now, 20 seconds doesn't sound like much, but it adds up faster than you'd think. Over 40 days, that comes out to more than 170,000 bends. And to be honest, the sound of that little machine clicking away nearly drove me out of the room. But I wanted to know the truth, so I let it run. Before I started, I measured how much force it took to pull each stem sideways by a set amount, so I'd have a real before and after. Not a guess, a number. Both plants started in roughly the same place, soft and easy to bend. Then I closed the door and let the machine do its work. 40 days later, I pulled them both out, and I'll be honest with you, I did not expect the difference to be this obvious. The shaken plant had barely grown any taller. But the stem was a different plant entirely. thicker at the base, stiffer all the way up, and when I pulled on it with the same force that used to bend it easily, it hardly moved. It had spent 40 days being told over and over that the world was pushing on it, and it had quietly rebuilt itself to push back. Shorter, denser, stronger, exactly what a plant does in the wind. But here's the part that genuinely surprised me, and it's the reason I'm glad I used a control. The still plant, the one I never touched, got a little stronger too. Not nearly as much, and it was still noticeably floppier, but it had firmed up on its own just from growing, and that taught me something I didn't expect to learn from shaking a plant for 40 days. Plants are always working on getting stronger in the background, all the time. The shaking didn't create that ability. It just poured fuel on it. And you don't need a machine and 40 days to use this. That's the best part. Because the takeaway is simple. If you have a houseplant that can't hold itself up, a leggy rubber plant, a floppy fiddle leaf fig, another ficus like the rubber plant, just a different species, a seedling that keeps reaching and toppling over, the answer was never a bigger stake. The answer is to stop protecting it from every little bit of stress. Run your hand back and forth over the tops of your seedlings a few times a day. Give your rubber plant a gentle shake when you walk past it, just enough to make it sway. Open a window and let a real breeze find it. Set it in front of a fan for an hour. You are not being rough with it. You're giving it the one thing your quiet, comfortable home took away. I took the stake out of my original rubber plant months ago. It stands up completely on its own now, and every time I walk past it, I give it a little wobble, the same way the wind would. It's become a habit. That plant will never know it's indoors. We spend so much energy trying to keep our plants comfortable. Perfect light, perfect water, never a draft. But sometimes comfort is the exact thing holding a plant back. A little stress, the right kind at the right time, isn't cruelty. It's what makes a plant strong enough to stand on its own. And honestly, I've started to think that's true of a lot more than just plants.